coming from a traditional finance background, it was hard to make sense of spending 10 grand on a JPEG.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, shit, man. Like, we're thinking of like quarterly earnings and inflation reports and employment and like running everything through statistical models. And then here you are like, yeah, I'm a FOMO into those super Yetis.
Matt, Alejandro, here we are.
We're back.
That's right. Who we got lined up today?
We have got Sergio Silva, aka Sergito, a prolific collector, builder, degen in the space, founder of Seize The Meebs, the Meebit-oriented meme card project, a member of NeonDAO, and someone who's been a big champion of artists throughout his time in the Web3 space.
What stood out to you, Ale?
Look, I think his love and passion for connection and relationships, him flying out to meet artists and developing those relationships with the DAOs or the collectors or the creators, and I also love that he's flipping the script, going from collector, flipper to now creator, right? And seeing that exchange and just his articulation on so many different topics, especially on describing sharks in the water and how the fishing or the elements of liquidity have changed in the space since his first entry into it.
1,000%. I think it was really fascinating given his experience working at Goldman Sachs in more of a traditional finance capacity and applying a lot of those fundamental principles of investing and trading to how he's navigated the space. I thought it was a really incredible episode. We're really excited to dive in. Before we do definitely want to encourage you to leave a review for the podcast if you haven't already. And on that note, Sergito.
Sergito, bienvenido to the NFT Now podcast. So happy to have you here, man. Let's get to it.
Well, thank you very much. I was looking forward to sitting down with you, fine gentlemen. I love you all. I love NFT Now, so I'm excited to be here today.
We love you too, man, and we're happy to have you on. Let's take it from the top. You come from the traditional finance world originally. How did you get into NFTs and Web3?
So I gotta blame it on G Money and Raoul Pal.
Like the usual suspects.
Usual suspects, yes. I got into crypto almost by chance during the crash, the COVID crash. I noticed that Bitcoin didn't go to zero. And that always, the good things last. And if it didn't go to zero back then, it meant like there was something there. And I had really smart friends that had been building on crypto. So I called one of them up and I was like, listen, what do I buy? There's a ton of different tokens. And he was like, Bitcoin and Ethereum, don't worry about anything. And I kind of forgot about it till later in that year. And what happened was I looked at my account on Coinbase and, there was a nice amount of money that I was not expecting there. It was probably like my first airdrop in a way, right? I was like, whoa, it's there. And so I hit up Raul, who we had similar backgrounds, and he pointed me in the direction of like DeFi. He was like, learn about DeFi, smart contracts. So I started reading different publications. One of them one day mentioned that somebody was stupid enough to pay $140,000 for a JPEG of an ape with a beanie. And obviously that was G Money's punk. And I was like, what are these people doing? So it caught my attention. I made fun of it at work. I was on the trading desk. I used to send morning notes to my clients. I was like, people are so stupid.
So I think it's important, let's put there here. I think it's important to provide context of like where you were, what you were doing, and because you were doing it at a very high level and a very competitive level.
Yeah, so I started my career at Goldman Sachs, where I spent 5 years covering Latin American institutional clients. And then I went to Barclays to build out the Latin American equity derivatives desk, and so the sales desk. So what we did on a daily basis was talk to, pension funds, hedge funds, about their investments and what they're trying to buy in the market. And part of that requires you keeping like mind share from your clients because there's a lot of competition. So you have to be really sending them the good stuff, good research, good notes, good trade ideas. And as part of my morning notes, I would talk about things that were different to them. So a year prior, the Reddit boards, right, with like Roaring Kitty, and I used to call them the hoodies, people who bought stuff on Robinhood.
Right, the whole GameStop saga, right?
Yeah, correct. And so, and then the memes from Reddit, like I love memes. And so I would put them on my very professional emails coming from like a director at Barclays. And then there's like a meme, and people they love them because every single time they get the exact same thing. It's like, oh, the S&P 500 went up 10 handles. Like, it's boring. But you get a meme from Reddit, right? Everybody's a degen inside. Everybody's a degen, especially if you're a hedge fund guy. You're a degen.
Facts.
And so, so I was like, all right, so DeFi, and then I saw G-Money's punk buy, and I was like, oh my God, these people are idiots. Look how crazy the world's gotten, when the world's going to end because people are spending all that money. But definitely sparked my interest. And so I downloaded Discord for the first time ever, went to the punks channel, and just fell down a very, very, very deep rabbit hole. And I found you all right there.
We're honored. And it's amazing, man. It's exciting to see your continued development and participation within the space. I know one of the things you're super bullish on and have been a long-time supporter of is Meebits. We'd love for you just to start by kind of breaking down to our audience, like what exactly are Meebits and why are you so bullish on them long-term?
Sure. So the Meebits are Larva Labs' third collection, right? So they were they created the space with CryptoPunks, the original 10,000, PFPs, their art. The punks were 4 years ahead of their time, right? They dropped in 2017. They didn't really get valuable until 4 years later. After punks, they did glyphs. So autoglyphs, first on-chain generative artwork, beautiful pieces, inspired art blocks, and everything since. Again, also like almost 3 or 4 years ahead of their time. And then Meebits, they dropped Meebits, was it 2021, late April, early May. And it's the first 3D, metaverse-ready character or PFP, and they're very like human looking, and I love that. I love that they're so human because while apes are fun and punks are fun and other things are fun, the reality is if you look at art history for the thousands of years that we've been on the earth, right? You look at caveman paintings and you go to the Louvre or the Met, the majority of the work is human bodies, human figures. Like we love ourselves. Humans are so voyeuristic, like we love ourselves. So the fact that it was Larva Labs' third collection, that Larva Labs is usually like 4 years ahead of their time, the characters come with 3D assets that are fully rigged, like future-proofed, and they're human beings, and I think they're adorable. They're really, really cute. That just all combined, like, just makes me really bullish that they're gonna be a lasting project because the asset speaks for itself, right? Larva never did any development for punks or glyphs, and they're still where they are. And so I think, give it a couple more years and people are going to wake up to how amazing, how, ahead of their time Meebits were.
How many Meebs do you own?
Gosh, I don't know. It's not that many. I was talking to Snowfro yesterday and he owns 128. I have about 100 less. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Only 28.
Only 28.
Around there, yeah. I sometimes, buy ones that I like and other ones that I just see really undervalued. I use that to like buy, flip into things that I want to hold.
Yeah, man. Well, not only holding Meebs, not only buying Meebs, but you are actually creating a project based on Meebits, the Seize the Meebs cards. You got to tell us, man, like, how did that come together? I know it was inspired by the 6529 meme cards. You were heeding his call to seize the memes of production. To give us the story. Sure.
So it's funny because it also ties back to Snowfro in a way. Not that he's involved, just for the record, but we were having dinner at CES in Vegas at the beginning of the year. And, I've been in the space for 2 years now. It was like my anniversary of buying my punk last weekend, my second anniversary.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
A big one.
It was a big night. Well, my wife doesn't think so, but she didn't think so back then. Now she's got a better punk now. She uses it on her LinkedIn and everything.
Wow. But is that still the first anniversary in your heart, though?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It was Valentine's Day weekend too, and she was like, I was like, I just bought this. And she's like, you forgot about Valentine's Day. Like, that's Monday, man. This is Saturday.
Come on, this is Meebits.
It's on the 14th. It's punks back then. So how Seize the Meebs, I've always wanted to do something in the space that, I've been lucky to build a bit of a platform. And I've done so just by being myself and trying to be helpful to people, given my financial background, like financial experience, helping artists with their jobs, pricing, mechanics, and the like. And over time, I kept calling people out for like, oh, you don't have enough skin in the game because all you're doing is like, posting on Twitter. Like, oh, I'm here, but you're just posting on Twitter. And while I was collecting and buying and trading and, making money, losing money, I felt like I was missing that component of really having skin in the game. And I was having dinner with Eric, and I said, I really want to do something in the space. How did you come about with our blocks? And he gave me the whole story. And then he was like, listen, people like you, people know you, they know you have your heart in the right place. Which every time I hear that, it's just the biggest compliment ever. That people just through Twitter think that of me is just like the best thing ever.
You keep it real.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate it. Following your lead. And he's like, let's just, whatever you do, put your heart into it, be open about it. And I'm sure people will appreciate that. I was like, okay, well, let me think. What do I like? I like Meebits. and I like the ability that we now own our IP as asset holders, right? Because Yuga Labs bought Meebits and gave us the IP just like the apes have. I love memes, as I was saying early on. And obviously the meme meta was just catching fire with 6.529. I was like, there's got to be a way to combine all these things and make really cool Meebit themed art with the friendship that I have from different artists, while also using the platform to give the spotlight to maybe some artists that are super talented, but haven't had the opportunity or the luck to really, hit that threshold where 40,000, 50,000 followers on Twitter turns you into like a star, which is really funny if you think about it. So put it all together, I got advice from some friends and just came up with Seize The Meebs. It's a collection of it's going to be like over 20, between 20 and 25 Meebit focused cards. It's meme in a way, just because it's inspired by 6529, who was really, really helpful from the beginning. Hit him up. I was like, hey, listen, I want to do this. Like, go for it. He's been encouraging everybody to like re-meme his memes and remix everything and CCO. And then his team reached out. They opened up a Discord group, and like any questions we have, it's amazing to have that support. But then we kind of like ran with my idea, which is not only do we make memes, we also make like really dope Meebit focused art, showcase the power of owning your IP, and add a little utility to it. So we've done a drop where the card can be redeemed for a bag of coffee that features the Meebit meme on the front. And I just want people to think like, okay, I hold an asset that gives me the rights to IP that is very recognizable and that is super professional and it's valuable. Like, what can I do with it? It's a coffee bag today, t-shirt tomorrow, but then it might really be the next Disney, and it won't be in a year, but maybe in 20 years. And if we can spark somebody to think that way today, then I'm all for it. And so that's how it came about.
And so what is the commitment to Meebits all about? Like, I know you're talking about IP, but what's the ultimate end goal? I know you mentioned there's going to be 20 cards, 25 cards, but what is some of the learnings that you're kind of gathering from this experiment?
Sure. So first, the Meebits community is quite small, to be honest, right? It's 20,000. Half of them are owned by like Yuga and like a bunch of big DAOs. And the community, given when it dropped, and it was like the week after Apes, and Yuga changed the game completely with utility and airdrops and the land, the game, Meebits kind of just got left behind as far as community goes. So the community is really small, but it's really passionate. So I wanted to kind of like pay homage to those people that stuck around, that saw Meebits get flipped by apes and then mutants and then dogs and everything that came about, flipped them, and are still building, are still celebrating what the Meebits stand for. And so first of all, it's like my labor of love for Meebits as the asset, but also the community. Given the community is small, but the asset has great provenance coming from Larva and hopefully great utility coming from Yuga, I also think there's a big opportunity to really take something that should be very, very valuable long-term and build on top of it. So I'm just kind of like, taking the best thing available that hasn't really been that developed. And Yuga's definitely working on that. They have a large team working on just Meebits. But, it's doing what Larva wanted from the beginning. And Matt and John will tell you, we dropped Meebits and we wanted the community to build with them, to take them and run with them. That's what we gave all the assets, 3D rig, they're all ready. There's a no-fee marketplace integrated. We wanted the community to do something, and the meta changed on them. But just taking that and saying, okay, I hear you, let's go. And again, if my example can help other communities, other projects, or other Meebit lovers to go out and do things, then I'm all for it.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And I know, just generally speaking, as a very like active collector in the market, if you had to put a finger on it, like how much have you invested in NFTs to date?
I honestly have no clue. I know how much I paid in taxes last year.
The DGen answer.
True story.
I know how much I've lost on some trades. That, like, for sure. I know how much I left on the table for not taking some bids when I was there.
We all know. We all know that ourselves.
I don't know.
What's your biggest, like, let's do this, okay? Biggest win in NFTs?
I want to say buying my first punk.
Okay.
So financial returns, if I would have sold the top, that would have been a 50x in 6 months.
Okay.
Didn't.
Punks are long-term though. There's no regret there. There's no regret there.
It just really changed my life twofold. One, buying a punk early on immediately gave me kind of
What do you mean by early on? What's early on?
It was February 12th of 2021. So
Wow, that's early. Yeah, that's yeah.
I was right before they really started taking
What
off.
was the floor then?
It was 6.1. It was the ultimate floor punk. It was 10 grand
It was
at the
4
time.
times that when I bought mine.
It was like a month later.
Yeah, it was just a month later. Exactly.
But it showed me how important it was, the social signaling aspect of having a punk.
It's like a Rolex, right? Or something.
Correct. It reminded me of, so, I was 24 years old, or 25, at Goldman Sachs. I'm an accent. I learned English in high school in the States. And I was like traveling to South America and meeting with like central bankers. And they respected me before they even met me because I had a Goldman Sachs business card, right? Because I had a Goldman Sachs email. So the door was always open.
Yeah.
Call, people will pick up, or they'll call me back, or they give me time on their calendar. Having the punk showed me that applies in this digital world too. And the difference is you're not just calling a central banker. There's 6-7 billion people on the internet that see that.
Yeah.
Most of them don't know about punks or NFTs, but we'll get there, I think. And it won't always be every single person in the world, but it'll be a large percentage where people are like, oh, okay, that guy is either very successful because they have an asset that is worth a lot, or it's early enough and crazy enough, like G-Money, to take that conviction bet. And so it taught me that if you have conviction, just go in and do it. And just kind of like put the whole space into context, which coming from a traditional finance background, it was hard to make sense of spending 10 grand on a JPEG.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, shit, man. Like, we're thinking of like quarterly earnings and inflation reports and employment and like running everything through statistical models. And then here you are like, yeah, I'm a FOMO into those super
It
Yetis.
goes to show that you can't always trust the data, right? Like you definitely have to have conviction in that intuition.
Yeah.
All right. Second part of that question is your biggest L.
Oh God. So my first big loss was not money that I lost, but money that I left on the table. And it affected me to the point that I left more money on the table because of that later on. I bought a Beeple Politics is Bullshit for $17K, actually a couple of days after I bought the punk on Nifty Gateway. And the morning of his Christie's auction, which again was just a month later,
March. Yeah.
the floor on those was like $400,000 on OpenSea. And I was the floor. Somebody undercut me by like 10 Ether. And I was like, you know what? I want to sell this, but if that one trades, mine probably trades, so whatever. And and so after the auction, somebody bought the floor, and then just the undercutting began. And I ended up 5xing that investment, but knowing that I could have cashed in 300K instead of 100K led me to then sell things too early.
You overcorrected.
In that summer.
Yeah.
So I sold a hoodie punk for like 50 Ether. Right after, like 2 weeks before they went to $500,000. And so
That hurts.
that's why I think that was my biggest loss.
I'm feeling that pain for you.
It was an educational loss, right? It was like it changed how I behaved, and losing money, we've all
So
lost
do
money.
you have parameters now? Do you
Now
have like,
I do.
Do you have like your guides?
If I'm collecting for the sake of collecting, I don't really think too much about the money, but I do know how much, like my max. Like I don't want to spend more than this because, most of these things will probably go down in value, and like I don't want to resent having given an artist 20 Ether for a piece if it's later worth 2 Ether. So I have like an upper band. And same thing for trades. Every time I got myself wrecked and actually lost money was because I paid too much. And I was usually coming off a big win. Like I flipped a Fidenza, I think it was the 4th highest floor Fidenza sold. And I turned around, instead of taking like, I think it was like 300 grand, I went and I spent it on like other art blocks, which I love every single one of them, but had I waited 3 months, I would have kept 90% of that money.
Yep.
And so now my biggest parameter is, other than like make sure you have conviction and understand why, don't spend more than like 6-7 Ether on a particular piece, unless it's like an absolute grail that is mispriced, right? Like, but if it's something new that is kind of just starting to run, I'm happy just passing on. And I think one of the biggest things, and this is going to sound funny considering like I love digital asset ownership, but you can enjoy, the beautiful thing about NFTs is you can enjoy the art without having to own it.
Facts.
That's it, straight up. Yeah.
Right? Alan Howard has this amazing Botero sculpture in his pool in one of his residencies. I was lucky to visit once. And it's amazing. And I was like, wow, like you never get to see this piece ever because it's here hitting in a private residence. But I can look at the God mode Fidenza
Yeah.
anywhere. Just on a phone, on any screen.
Right click save, baby.
Right click save. It is the biggest power this space has. Because
Yeah.
if we're trying to get more eyeballs on it, well, let's right click save the fuck out of it. And I think that's what Xcopy got so right. And all these people that are doing things were like, yeah, copy my work, remix it.
It only makes it more powerful. It only makes it more ubiquitous.
Correct. So so going back to your original question, like if something runs up and I just don't want to feel bad about spending so much money on it, just right click save it.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it that way. And it's fine. And if it drops down again, I'll probably buy it. But yeah, I do have like an upper cap on how much I spend per piece just to, I don't know, just based on experience.
That's very sober of you.
Oh, I'm very similar in that regard. I don't tend to chase things after they've left the stable, but that said, my biggest L's are definitely like missed opportunities and money I left on the table. The one that comes to mind for me, I never minted my punk sneakers for Artifact. I thought I had I thought the window, I didn't know it was
but
limited.
They were expensive.
They were expensive. I was like, one ETH for sneakers, that's a lot. But that would have been how many clones?
It was at the peak. It was like a $50,000 asset.
Yeah, exactly. So, I was like, damn, from now on, I and like you said, I corrected for that, and like I put things in my calendar. It's like, when does this end? When does this claim end? Things like that. But I think you make a really interesting points there, and it's like you have had an eye for projects early, like you said, getting into punks then, but also like you were very early on Nifty Gateway. You were trading there. You were early to artists like Alpha Centauri Kid, ACK, and the like. I'm just curious, like, what do you look for in like an early stage project, whether it's an artist, whether it's whether it is actually a project, what kind of traits do you look for from in terms of like your investment thesis?
Sure. So for artists, I think that's a little easier to answer because I have more experience picking the right artists early on. Ness Graphics, for example, I had seen his work and it was only 101s and they got expensive real quick. And a lot of people didn't know about him, but then he did a drop on Nifty, but as part of a gallery drop, ABB Gallery. He had his first edition piece called Homebase. Now, people don't do their research, right? They're like, yeah, whatever. And I had seen his work. And so when that edition came available, I didn't win the drawing, but I bought one immediately and I hit him up. And I was like, hey, man, I love your work. I think you're going to be a blue chip artist. And he was so nice. Just like really nice person. And I was like, oh, this is a great guy. And I was like, huh. Same thing with ACK.
Yeah.
We
100% match.
Like we made friends over Twitter DMs, right? And so I was like, okay, now you kind of like can tell the quality of the person behind. And if your work resonates with you visually and the person resonates with you like, on a more personal level, to me, that's a no-brainer. And so that's kind of what I've done, just reached. It's funny because you get a lot of artists on your DMs looking for attention and sales, and it's part of the business, right? As a collector, you understand that and you're respectful, and artists should also be respectful of people's times and the like, and it's a very delicate balance. And now that I'm like almost like shilling my project on DMs sometimes, even to my artist friends, so I'm like, yo, like you need to make a card.
The script is flipped.
I've learned so much. Yeah. I have so much appreciation now for that. But with those early picks, it was more about getting to know the people. It's also easier when you're trying to DM Xcopy before it's Xcopy, right? We're trying to DM Ness before it's Ness.
Yeah.
And then those friendships last a lot longer.
So now let's give some of our community a little bit of alpha. Who's an artist? Who's the next Ness? Who's the next ACK? Who's the next Xcopy? Who are you sliding into DMs with today?
So I've had a really nice time building a friendship with Cardinal. He's a glitch artist. I think his background is quite unique because he started as a collector.
Oh, shit.
He started as a collector and his work just really speaks to me. His palette is one color. It's orange and black. But it's there's a lot of glitch out there right now because...
Pulling out my phone right now.
And again, like I have two of his 101s and it was like, I bought one and I love the work. I love the message. I hit him up on the end. We like DM all the time now and it's great. And I think his career is very bright. And so being there early enough, it just makes me happy to see people succeed like that. And there's a lot of artists that I, befriended now through DMs. Another one that I really like is Dave Baczynski.
Yeah, familiar.
He is a former pro skater, right? So this is a guy that was like Olympic level, world level skating champ and rock star. And during the pandemic, all those competitions and everything got shut down, he picked up a camera and a drone camera, and he started making art out of his art, right? Which is like skating and doing all those tricks. And so he has this series called Roll Forever, which he takes a drone and he records skaters doing lines of skating, not other lines, through parks.
Those don't get recorded.
And then he edits them to loop forever. So they're called Roll Forever, and they're so clean and so beautiful. You put them on like a big digital screen or digital frame, and they just look like really like art. And so it's also somebody with 3,000 Twitter followers, a lot more larger presence on Instagram, who not only made something out of the pandemic, which I think this whole NFT space kind of did in itself. So to me, that speaks a lot about the character of somebody, but also was able to transcend, his own thing, get uncomfortable with picking up a camera, and now is trying to onboard more skate artists and the like into the space. And so his work is still very, very, accessible, mostly one-on-ones. He's got out there. He's a great person. I flew out to meet him a couple of weeks ago. And so again, just that personal connection tells you that is somebody who's going to be around, who's trying to innovate. And so I'm really, really excited for what's next for Dave as well.
I'm curious what you learned from your time in traditional finance at Goldman Sachs and how some of the fundamental principles to investing, what you've gleaned and how you've applied that to your endeavors as a collector and trader with NFTs.
Sure. So I think the first and foremost thing is just the value of relationships, right? Even at Goldman, I mean, the phone will ring because it was Goldman and people called you, but you still had to deliver something of value to that person on the other end. Maybe it was the best price ever. And so, there was hedge funds that traded with banks that they hated their guts, but it was the best price. Mm-hmm. But most of the time it was more about saying, okay, well, this is what I bring to the table for you. This is how I can add value to you. And this is how you almost repay me. And it's very unspoken, right? That's what a friendship is. You like somebody because they make you feel good and you share hobbies and you do things together.
That's why I like you, bro. This is why we hang out.
I love it. No, exactly. Same for all of you, right? And so it's what is the value of a relationship? And it's in finance, with NFTs. I was just talking about building connections with artists, with marketplaces, with early Nifty days, got close to the team there, with Manifold, with other traders, other collectors. And so what I learned was invest in those relationships early on, develop them, nourish them. And, if you make the right connections, those naturally pay off down the road, whether it's somebody like Anonymous X, who, we struck an early friendship. And honestly, we hardly ever talk, but when we do, it's we spoke yesterday, right? And, he's with ACK, we both are big ACK fans and are able to bounce ideas off each other and then help him sometimes when he's thinking about his next drop mechanics and the like. With 6529 on that whole team, Bat Soup and AC, again, early relationships where, we might not go out to grab a coffee every week, but they're there. And so now that we needed a little bit of advice on my project, quickly they pick up the phone or the DM and say, okay, yeah, no, we know you're a friend. We'll help you out, just like, we've helped so many other people. And so I think that was probably something you don't hear when you ask somebody about Goldman Sachs, traditional finance. People usually think, trading and the order book. And yeah, we could get into all that. But I think if you're trying to really get value other than the money in NFTs, it will be from being here early with the pioneers of the future of art and asset ownership and the like. And that will only come from building those relationships.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And, I think you bring a really interesting perspective to the table. One of the things I think was really interesting to see was a lot of people entering NFTs. And there was many of them was their first time really trading and doing things like that. And there were a lot of things they should have been thinking about or misconceptions. One thing that comes top of mind is a lot of people racked up crazy tax bills that they weren't prepared for and things like that. I'm curious, given your perspective and your experience in trading and what are some of the biggest misconceptions around trading NFTs and things that maybe people that are entering the space aren't thinking about?
Yeah, so maybe early on, the market was a lot more inefficient, right? And there was so many opportunities for alpha, which is profit. Whereas now you have very sophisticated players, right? It's Adult Swim only sometimes, where it's DAOs, it's people from hedge funds, it's people that quit their traditional. Yeah, it's sharks out there. So it's a shark-infested water, and it's harder to fish. in shark-infested oceans. So I think people need to be a little more mindful of the fact that it's a PvP game. That's why gamers do so well at NFT trading, right? Because they're used to playing that game, and it's a little bit more difficult today to really capture value, or just, you'll get lucky. Everybody gets lucky every so often. But I think my number one advice would be really understand what you're getting yourself into, really understand how the technology works. Because, so many people get wrecked just on phishing links. It has nothing to do with NFT trading, but they didn't understand how the technology worked. They FOMOed into something, they clicked, they didn't realize that was the wrong kind of approval, poof, their money's gone. And so I think education and just a better understanding of why you're here and what you're trying to get out of it.
I think that those are some excellent points in terms of education and really understanding. I love that concept that there's more sharks in the water and there's less fish.
Well said.
Yeah, that was really well said.
Yeah.
I want to transition the conversation here into a little bit more of a topic that hits close home to you and I. We're both immigrants, right? We're both Hispanic, and we represent a very small minority in the world, and let alone in Web3, right? Usually it's the white male that's predominant in Web3, in NFTs, right? You're a very prominent personality, right, within our community, right? Like you said, there's certain elements you've invested in, you take your time. What are some of the things that you feel is important as an immigrant, as Hispanic in Web3 to highlight? And what are the downsides as to why the Hispanic market has not come into NFTs or Web3 as hardcore, given the life-changing opportunities that are presented?
Yeah, so that's actually a very tough question for a couple of reasons, right? First and foremost, right, I'm a black punk, right, with clown eyes. Mm-hmm. It represents me today, but, it's not really, I don't think, what I look like, except when I put on makeup. The beauty about this place is, or the space, is that you can be whoever you want to be. And that strips you also of your diversity sometimes. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you're trying to be something that applies to the current thing, right? And the current thing is dominated by, a little bit more affluent people that can punt around assets that are worth thousands of dollars, right? Versus being out there maybe working a second, third job, like a lot of our people are. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of it's dominated by a certain culture or a certain background, not out of racism, not out of people, trying to gatekeep. It just so happens to be that the majority of people in space are white, male, 25 to 40 years old. Just like the majority of workers on Wall Street are people from the tri-state area that went to Holy Cross and universities like that. That's the regional industry. And if you go to Houston, the majority of the petroleum engineer and oil industry people are people from the region who went to the schools that have programs focused on that industry. I think our industry has a certain demographic. And so it's hard to say, well, we're getting put down, or people are discriminating against us because there's not enough voices in this space. And I don't think it's being done on purpose. I just think it happens naturally. So acknowledging that, I would say it's the first step. Second step is we do have to change it, right? We do have to say, hey, look at me. I'm a brown guy with an accent, right? You are a person of, a different color or a different sexual orientation or identity. How do we use this technology to empower those communities? How do we use this technology to enrich those communities? And it's a very complicated topic because you don't want to be hey, give me money because I'm Mexican, but then you also want to be hey, give me money because I'm Mexican and I don't have the same opportunities. Yeah. And listen, society as a whole has not resolved the issue, right? We still have all kinds of different initiatives from, the college admissions and even at work, who you hire, who you promote. It is a very difficult subject. I think having the conversation is important. And I also think just everybody putting in an effort to be inclusive of everybody, regardless of who they are, and taking advantage of the fact that, yeah, I'm a black punk. So it doesn't matter who I am behind. What matters are my actions, my words, what I put forward into this community. So hopefully the community itself says, okay, those are people that are putting in value. Let's reward them with value. And I think people will be surprised at how many Latinos are, in the space. We're just talking about Snowfro, right? He's Mexican. We're talking POAP. POAP is almost like saying Google, right? It's a birth now. Patricio and the whole team, for the most part, they're in Argentina. Decentraland, a lot of Argentinians. What else? Sandbox, have teams in Argentina. We have a huge Asian presence. And so, yeah, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I think we should have the conversation. We should push forward. We should definitely have outreach, and that's going to come from you and me, right? It's not going to come from you guys, because it's not your people, right? It's like back again, Wall Street alumni groups like reach out to their university. They don't reach out to the school that's 3 towns over. You reach out to people that you know. So the outreach is on us, and hopefully the support is on everybody else that says, okay, these are people of value. Let's help them out.
Dude. Wow, what an eloquent answer. Very well said, man. And I think that that's very, very spot on about the outreach being part of our responsibility on there. And then I love that take where you're just like, our identity kind of gets stripped away in the metaverse, and you can become whoever you want. If you want to be the Meebit, if you want to be the punk, if you want to be the ape, right? I think you can actually amorphize yourself into who you are based on your actions and not your race, creed, or sexual orientation. That's really awesome.
Yeah, and like you said, there's both good sides to that and also some negative sides, but potentially to that as well. And I do think you make an excellent point, but I also do think that we as a whole do have a responsibility as like leaders in this space to build a more inclusive Web3. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about like, outside of these different communities, like, as leaders in the space and as different communities in the space, like how can we bring that day forward?
Yeah, I think just being very supportive of, we're all, people in the space are smart, right? Like you have to be smart to be successful in NFTs. It's a tough game. And so everybody knows when somebody's from a different region or has a different accent, or you can even tell by the time zones, right? Like now with Seize The Meebs, we've had to really think about the drop times to make sure that we are not, putting our Asian collectors at a disadvantage, right? And you have to think globally. So how do you encourage that in the space? I think you start with yourself and really questioning like your own kind of almost perceptions and like your own like implicit bias. Like, why is that there? Why do I think, different of that community over those people? And what does that say about me? How can I use that as an opportunity to better myself? And then hopefully as everybody in the space betters themselves, the community becomes better. As far as like specific actions, it is tough. It is tough because, who are you going to help? There's a lot of people in need out there. So even if you say, okay, we're going to donate X amount of Ether to this community. Well, why that community? Why the Venezuelans instead of the Mexicans? Why, the people of this color instead of this color? So I think you encourage participation because you want to reward, it's Web3, right? So it's ownership, it's community, it's participation. So you want to reward the communities that are involved. Mm-hmm. And that's how you change. So you bring in your community, again, that outreach, and you say, hey, listen, if you participate in this, if you put in the best of your abilities in this, there's a bigger chance that you get something really valuable out of it. And we continue encouraging that. It kind of creates like a positive flywheel.
Okay. I want to bring this into a new conversation. Speaking of positive flywheels and coming back to your love of memes, let's talk about the ultimate truth, the ultimate meme. As you know, the math does not lie.
It does not lie.
It does not lie.
It is perfect.
And it's perfect.
I know this equation.
Okay. What is the math?
The perfect math is 1D equals that 1B.
The crypto dick butts.
Crypto dick butts. One dick always equals one butt.
So let's talk about your love for crypto dick butts. Where does it come from? Because you're very active in our community, right? I'm a holder. We both share very much the love of it. Let's talk about that love for crypto dick butts.
Yeah, so, I was late to the dick butts, right? I've been early to some things and then late to some other things. The dick butts were, even though the dick butt itself is part of the internet lore for, 2 decades now at this point, right? And I think, again, the value of memes, people think of memes as just like making a picture with funny caption, passing around your group chat, it dies the next day. But the reality is, memes are art, they're culture, they're really testaments to the moment that we're in. Going back to the caveman stuff, like those were memes, right? Like drawing like the little buffalo that you were hunting, like that is a meme, you're capturing the moment. And so the dick bot is a big internet meme, right? And it just speaks to the ridiculousness of the space and the time, right? The fact that you're sitting in front of this machine and you're able to talk to anybody around the world and do like a gazillion things on it. Like, that's just wild. You told that to somebody 40 years ago, they'd be like, what the heck are you smoking, man? But now it's something that we do. And so fast forward to crypto dick butts, they were first born out of the punks Discord, which you cannot negate that provenance, right? Especially as a punk holder and lover. The second thing is they're actually quite cute.
They really are quite cute. They're really cute.
If you tell somebody that's never seen a dick butt, hey, dick butts, and it's a dick with a butt, with a dick on it, they're like, what? What the fuck, man? Like, I told you to stop doing that shit. Those NFT things are fucking with your head. Sorry for my language.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
But if you show them a dick butt, and it's got a little McDonald's hat, or it's got like a little flower,
Or a
like
little mushroom on the back.
Or like
The accessories always got me.
my God.
Or the clean butts. The bangs.
I love the clean butts for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, they're
for sure.
really, really-
But also love the chaotic butts and the cohesive butts. And so like going back to the whole meme situation and how ridiculous it is, the fact that these things are worth, a nice amount of money and that you can build such a cool community around it. And you go to the Discord, right? And like the commands are like size.
Yeah.
And the bot gives you like 13 inches or like 2 inches. The fact that when like a dick butt gets purchased, it's like bang, like it's kind of like almost like an outlet, like an oasis.
Yeah.
And it's the purest meme in my opinion, right? It's just something that you can actually enjoy. Nobody questions you in the Discord. Nobody like judges you or challenges. It's just like, yes, we love this pixelated penises.
We do. We love it. You know what I mean? Quick question on that front. Undervalued or overvalued right now?
I think dick butts will be perpetually undervalued because there's only, on that series, only like 5,200 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's nothing, right? I was talking again to Snowfro about Meebits. It's like, dude, there's only 20,000 of them. Once people realize what these things are, like there's not going to be enough to go around. And we saw that with punks and with apes and other collections that people just take in and they never want to let go. Like you're going to have to pry my punk out of like my dead hands.
You did send me the seed phrase via email the other day, so I just want to like.
That was my ape seed phrase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big difference.
God, I'm going to get destroyed again because I hate the apes. And whatever.
It's all good. It's all good. I think
I love the apes, by the way. We love the founders. Shout out to Gordon. We wish him a very speedy recovery.
Likewise. One of the things that you keep mentioning is the importance of community, right? And what does that entail from your perspective, right? Like we keep hearing in Web3 the word community being thrown around, right? From your perspective, being part of the Meebits community, being part of the crypto dickbutts community, being part of the CryptoPunk community, like these communities are pillars to our space, right? And now you're doing your own community with Seize The Meebs, right? These elements. Like what are some pillars that you're seeing that are fundamental to building and growing a community?
Sure. So I'll start by acknowledging that the word community is so cliche and overused in the space, right? Like every community. However, it is also the foundation of the space. So it's again that kind of like dual seat to it, which is so intriguing to me. Community, if you think about your family, like I love my family. I hope everybody loves their family, but you don't pick your family, right? You just kind of like, you pop out and like, oh shit, that's my crazy uncle. And like, but then your friend group, you pick your friend group, right? And you say, I want to spend time with these people and I want to go through different things in life with these people. And so the NFT communities are like that, where it's people that you pick to spend your digital life with. And so that's why I think it's so important that people not only vibe with the community, but they're also participate and actually add value to it, because it really becomes the representation of what they're doing in Web3 in just their internet life. And we all live our life on the internet, right? Like we're glued to our phones. I mean, you guys are reading your notes off your phones, right? Before it would have been like a notepad or something. Like we're just so
digitally native.
Exactly. And so that's why communities are so important, because those are your friends. Those are the people like in the Punks Telegram. My wife had to travel abroad. And we were out there in Europe for like 2 weeks. And every time we went to, I just put in Punks Telegram, hey guys, I'm going to be in like Munich. And like 2 or 3 punks were like, let's do lunch. And so we were able to sit down with people that we had never seen face to face and have 3-hour lunches where we're just laughing and talking about things that, had happened away from where we were, like physical closeness, but we had been part of that. And so communities are your online friend groups that you're doing cool things with. And now with the power of NFTs and owning those assets, hopefully adding value to like your own portfolio, right? Like if you like, that's what I'm trying to do with Seize The Meebs, like bring awareness to the Meebits, how cool they are. And so, hopefully the idea is that that's going to help the value of the Meebits community that holds a bag of Meebits.
Not financial advice, NFA.
Not financial advice, but again, it's like that positive flywheel of like, oh, this is really cool people I want to hang out with. The dick butts. Like, God, I love the BJ in the morning.
Dude, the BJs in the morning are the best.
So we BJ because that's bonjour. We're international crap.
So BJ is like the GM for the dick butts
Yes,
community. It's the standardized greeting.
That's right. It's a bit of alpha.
I'm sadly, I do not own a dick butt yet, but I'm catching on quick.
You're a fast learner. You're a fast student. You're a fast study. That's the way. Yeah.
Your online group of friends that you can all work together towards adding a ton of value to what you're doing, both emotional, if you want to call it sentimental, just like quality of life, but also financial, right? Like you can work together. Like the apes were so good at that. Like the early apes, they were annoying, but they were really good at kind of just making themselves felt.
Do you guys remember the early days of apes where they were literally Twitter spaces of just like the apes going, right?
They were like Clubhouse back then.
You remember that video of the first Ape Fest, and it was like 6 a.m, and people were lining for the tickets, and they were like,
I remember.
I saw that, and my wife was like, "Yeah, no, thank God, I don't have any apes." But then I saw the airdrop, I was like.
So I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into metaverse too, because I know obviously similar to Web3, there's, tons of potential, and I think we all believe in one way or another will really redefine how we engage with other people online. For the metaverse, though, if you look at some of the stats around some of the leading platforms, adoption is still a ways off when it comes to meaningful usage of these virtual environments. What do you think it's going to take to kind of drive meaningful adoption of metaverses?
Time. Just like everything with humans, right? You could say 20 different brands of car makers that were, really relevant in the 60s that are no longer around, yet we use cars for everything. You can say the same thing about internet companies, even stuff like Netscape and American Online that were such a staple of our first steps into the internet. They're no longer around. So humans were just cyclical, and we go through iterations of things. So cliche, but it's still super early. And I think we have to go through these exercises and understanding what's really going to stick. And how do we do that? We just go through them. I'm super bullish on the metaverse, actually wearing my NeonDAO hoodie.
Let's hear more about that.
NeonDAO, so NeonDAO is an investment DAO under the Tribute Labs brand. So that's the same folks as like Flamingo DAO and them. It was put together by a group of Metaverse DAO, which was a smaller metaverse focused DAO that was building on crypto voxels and doing different activations on the different metaverses and investing in them. Members from Flamingo DAO who were looking to complement, they have a big art portfolio and they've done really well, the punks, the alien punk, and all the squiggles in the world, but they wanted metaverse exposure. And then the team from Artifact, who obviously we're building characters for the metaverse and working with OnCyber and the like. And so we put together a group of like 60 folks and we created NeonDAO. And so NeonDAO, what it does, it just seeks to invest and promote the open metaverse. We do equity investments, we do token investments, we just buy NFTs as well. We have a nice bag of Meebits and clones, and it's also stuff like terraforms. And we invested actually in Blur. Big day today. So really looking to put skin in the game, right? Put skin in the game and say, okay, we believe in this. We're not just like shilling our backs. Actually, I don't hear a lot about from NeonDAO. But we're out there engaging with builders, helping our portfolio companies, participating in the space. I think the hour and a half, the weekly call that we have, that's actually today, is probably my favorite hour and a half that I spend in the NFT space every week, because it's really, really smart folks that come in and say, I just learned about this new thing. And then they share that and we have back and forths. And it's a smaller, but it's a community that I picked to be a part of. They're my online friends with whom, building an investment portfolio and developing it and putting all kind of like, our vision together to what we think the open metaverse should look like and trying to work towards that.
Let's dig into that a little bit, because I know our listeners may not fully know what the open metaverse is. I know that you're a big 6529 guy. You're a big believer in that, and what's being built there. Maybe you can just help break down like what is the open metaverse and versus the alternatives of these big centralized platforms like Meta and the like coming in, and why is it so important?
Yeah, so obviously the easiest thing to do is refer everybody to 6529's extensive threads on it. I don't want to do it too much of a disservice, but
Sure.
just pretty much today, that digital life that we live is controlled by corporations. And that sounds like, typical big old scary things. And obviously a lot of these web companies have done a lot of good for closeness, right? I can FaceTime my nieces who are in Mexico and I don't get to see physically that often, but I can FaceTime at any time and see them on the screen and interact with them. So there's good stuff, but there's even better stuff. And that is where we as users own the infrastructure or can better plug into the infrastructure so that nobody can actually censor you. So freedom to transact, big part of the whole open metaverse, big part of the ethos of crypto, where there's no centralized entity that tells you what you can or can't do, what you can or can't post, what's acceptable or not, what you can do with your money, right? That's amazing about Bitcoin and Ether and all the other things. I can send money to Venezuela and nobody's going to tell me, capital controls or that sanctions list, nothing. So using that same concept now for our digital life in this spaces, in this new internet, like more, where there's more things to do and own. Open metaverse refers to that, to the ability to operate without somebody telling you yes or no. And so we believe the users should be the ones in control of the infrastructure.
Let me ask you one question around skill set. Because I think a lot of the most successful collectors, traders, and sometimes even creators come from a financial background, right? Like if you take a notice on that, what do you think that is? Like, what is the appeal? What's that transition like?
It's the skill set is very similar, right? Because what you're doing here at the end of the day, you have a 24-hour, 7 days a week streaming market, right? You can wake up on a Sunday at 3 a.m. and check what the price of a bunch of different things are, right? The value of a project is. You don't get that in any other market. Even the FX market shuts down like Saturday and half Sunday. Whereas with NFTs, you constantly have that. And so there's a lot of different things that you pick up on a trading desk, on a sales desk, because there's understanding order books and the ability to read, okay, well, if there's 4 or 5 more buys and there's no sellers for another 2 Ether, well, that's going to make the floor jump. And if that happens, well, there's people that are going to maybe FOMO into it because they were waiting for it lower, right? Or if you see a bunch of bits 10 cents lower, you're like, all right, well, there's definitely demand for this. Maybe I'll just get in front of them and try to get things going. And so it's financial markets at the end of the day. And I think that's what really draws people, right? Like people are degens at heart, different ranges of it. But, that's why there's a lot of gamblers and poker players. It's the same thing. It's that ability to understand probabilities, right? Like, okay, what is the EV of this investment, of this trade? Okay, if I have odds of 90% odds that I'm going to make money, and you probably put a lot of money into the trade, where it's 50-50, it's no better than a coin flip. Maybe not so much. So poker players understand that. Sport bettors understand that. They understand probabilities. And then obviously in finance, all you're doing is trading curves, right? You're trading.
For everyone at home, Sergito's pupils just dilated just a little bit more while explaining this.
I love statistics.
Yeah. No, it really shows. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Sam because we have one final round to close everything off.
Well, welcome to Bullish or Bearish, where we run through a list of different topics, and you have to tell us whether you're bullish or bearish and give us a brief reason as to why. We're going to start things off with a 2023 bull run. Bullish or bearish?
Define bull run. And does it last?
Yes, something comparable to what we've seen in 2021, early 22.
Gosh, I want to say from here till year end, we'll probably end higher, but it'll be very, very roller coaster ride.
So it sounds like bearish. Bearish on the bull run.
Yeah, bearish on the bull run.
Okay.
NFT now.
Super ultra duper bullish.
I love it. Love to see it.
Highest conviction play. We're one token.
Bullish or bearish? Bitcoin ordinals.
Gosh, I want to say bearish. I think the Bitcoin ethos is very different from the Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche ethos. I think Bitcoin has, its value, its mindshare because it's pure. And I do think the majority of the Bitcoin space will want to remain pure. And I personally think it should remain pure. Inscribing, it's like having graffiti in Paris, right? And there's graffiti that is amazing, and some of the best NFT artists are really good graffiti artists, and there's a ton of value in that as well. But you wouldn't want graffiti outside the loop. And I do think that Bitcoin should remain pure in that sense. So bearish.
All right, I'm going to give you an edgy one. You ready? Bullish or bearish? Ryan Carson.
Oh my God. I just want to say I wish Ryan Carson the best. I think he needs a lot of help in understanding that you can't just come into the space and use Web2 tactics of over-leveraging credentials that might be overinflating and, using your talent. He's a really good speaker. He's got a big following for a reason, and he used it the wrong way, and I want to challenge him to be better. And I wish him the best in doing so.
Okay, great. So it sounds like you're bearish.
Bullish or bearish? 6529 memes.
I'm super bullish, 6529 memes. I think we are going to continue to see people appreciate the fact that it's a collection of really cool artists that are working on things that are super relevant for culture, right? Like people love collecting things from our childhood. I remember seeing big collectors buying like Super Nintendo games that were rated, like really high. And I was like, why, dude? You can play that online, right? On an emulator. And it's been 2 years now. I'm like, gosh, I wish I had a Super Nintendo.
Give me that Zelda.
Right. So, and that was part of our culture. We're all kind of like in the same age range. And
100%.
And so...
Dude, that golden eye, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, no. And so I think memes, especially 6529 memes, are that for our moment. And so we'll be very nostalgic about this moment when we're like 60 years old. And owning those today is probably one of the better risk-reward play. No financial advice. They might go to zero. Yeah. But
this all might, right?
I mean, the lights go out tomorrow, and try to get your ether out. Right? That was my original bearish case for Bitcoin. When my first friend who actually went and founded Coinbase told me about Bitcoin. I was like, what happens if the power goes out?
Yeah. No, good points. All right. Finally, what's a piece of alpha or something that you kind of have a prophecy for, that you're seeing something that the market is not necessarily seeing it yet?
I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities. So I think to make money in NFTs, you have to be either a trader or an artist. But I think NFTs are just the perfect value and idea delivery platforms. And so if you've been in the space and you have a way of delivering value to people, even within your own, small business, we get a lot of small business people in the space, maybe because they're not 9 to 5 and glued to a desk, or they have a little bit of time to pay attention to the market. Say, okay, well, this is a technology that is like a supercharged CRM device that I can use to deliver value to my customers, my clients down the road. Devising ways to start doing that today, I think, will be super worth people's time. Because people big companies are going to come into the space and be like, okay, well, I want to do something that's been done before that's good at a different scale. And sometimes those companies, they don't build, right? They go and they buy, right? Like Facebook bought Instagram. Because could Facebook, made a carbon copy of Instagram? Yeah, in a heartbeat, right? It would take an engineer a day, but they didn't. They bought the idea, they bought the IP. So I think you don't no longer have to just be a trader or just be an artist. They'll continue to do very well in space, but you can be a builder that is not just dropping a 10K PFP project and hoping for the best. It's somebody that, hey, listen, I have a t-shirt company, right? In real world, or I'm an insurance agent. How can I use NFTs and what I've learned so far, the power of these tokens, to deliver value?
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the pitch for Now Pass. But
great points.
Yeah, all great points. Sergito, es un placer.
Placer es mío.
Thank you for joining us on this episode, man.
Guys,
it's been amazing.
So glad to have you, man.
What a blast. What a blast. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah.
Seize the Meebs.
Seize the Meebs.
That's it.
Man, well, that was a fun conversation. What stood out to you guys?
Look, I love how real he is about the way that the trading space has changed. I love his belief in the open metaverse. And I love that he's building the Seize The Meebs project and like really kind of like rolling up his sleeves and getting behind something that he's been a champion of for a long time. It's been really interesting to watch him just kind of develop from, as you said, like a trader to a collector to now a builder. And I think that he's it brings a really important perspective to the space and also to the NFT Now podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, man, I think his articulation and positioning of him being an immigrant and how that is not necessarily relevant in the space. Like there's still relevance to it, but it's not necessarily as important or carries that much weight given the fact that we can become anyone in this metaverse world. And secondly, I'm biased by it, but the ultimate truth of math, right? 1D equals 1B and his love of crypto dick butts. Regardless of who the guest is, I'm always going to see that as a highlight.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely left this episode even more bullish when it comes to Meebits. I think as the metaverse becomes more of a thing, being able to have these 3D models, really have this true ownership of your identity as we start to incorporate and navigate more of our lives in metaverse environments. I know that's still pretty far off, but just hearing his whole perspective, not only on Meebits, but on metaverse adoption was very, very fascinating and exciting. Well, as always, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate your support. We will be back next week. Until then, we out.